My name is Bella. I am 28 years old. I am a teacher. I teach second grade at Riverside Elementary School. I love my job. I really do. Every morning I wake up excited. I think about my students. I think about what I will teach them today. Teaching is not just my job, it is my life. I live alone in a small apartment. I have a cat named Whiskers. I don't have a boyfriend. I don't have time for dating. My students are my world. I know all their names. I know their favorite colors. I know their dreams. One of my students is a little girl named Sophie. She is 7 years old. She has long brown hair and big green eyes. Sophie is very quiet. She sits in the back of the classroom. She draws beautiful pictures, but she never talks. She never raises her hand. I worry about her. I want to help her, so I decided to call her father. I wanted to have a parent-teacher conference. I wanted to talk about Sophie. I wanted to understand her better. I sent a note home in Sophie's backpack. The note said, "Dear Mr. Lawson, I would like to meet with you to discuss Sophie's progress. Please let me know when you are available." 2 days later, I got a reply. The note said, "Dear Miss Bella, I can come Thursday at 4 p.m. Thank you for caring about my daughter. Mark Lawson." I smiled when I read it. I thought, he seems nice. I didn't think anything else. I just wanted to help Sophie. Thursday came. It was a normal day. I taught math in the morning. We learned about addition. The kids were excited. In the afternoon, we read a story about a brave little mouse. Sophie drew a picture of the mouse. It was beautiful. When the bell rang, the children went home. I stayed in my classroom. I organized papers on my desk. I waited for Mr. Lawson. At exactly 4 o'clock, there was a knock on the door. I said, "Come in." The door opened. A man walked in. He was tall. He had dark hair and kind eyes. He wore jeans and a blue shirt. He smiled at me. He said, "Hello, I'm Mark, Sophie's father." I stood up. I shook his hand. I said, "Nice to meet you. I'm Miss Bella." His hand was warm. My heart beat a little faster. I didn't understand why. We sat down. I started talking about Sophie. I said, "Sophie is a wonderful student. She's very smart, but she's very quiet. She doesn't talk to the other kids. I'm worried she might be lonely." Mark listened carefully. He nodded. He said, "I know. She's shy. It's been hard for her. Her mother and I divorced last year. Sophie took it very hard. She stopped talking so much after that. I felt sad for him. I felt sad for Sophie. I said, "I'm sorry." "That must be difficult." Mark looked down. He said, "It is. I'm doing my best." "But I'm not sure if my best is enough." I said, "You're doing great. Sophie is a happy child. She just needs time." Mark looked at me. He smiled. He said, "Thank you. Thank you for caring about her." We talked for an hour. We talked about Sophie. We talked about school. We talked about teaching. Mark asked questions. He listened. He really cared. I liked that about him. Before he left, he said, "Thank you again, Miss Bella. This really helped, I said. You're welcome. Call me anytime. He smiled at me. I smiled back. Our eyes met. For a moment, we just looked at each other. Then Mark said goodbye. He walked out the door. I sat down at my desk. My heart was still beating fast. I thought, what just happened? The next week, everything was normal. I taught my students. I helped Sophie with her reading. She was getting better. She smiled more. On Friday afternoon, I saw Mark outside the school. He was picking up Sophie. He waved at me. I waved back. Sophie ran to him. She hugged him. He picked her up. I thought, he's a good father. The following Monday, Mark came to school again. This time he was volunteering. The school was having a book fair. Parents were helping. Mark was organizing books. I was surprised to see him. He said, "Hi, Miss Bella." I said, "Hi. I didn't know you were volunteering." He said, "I wanted to help. And I wanted to see Sophie's school more." We worked together that afternoon. We talked. We laughed. I learned more about him. He was a carpenter. He built furniture. He loved his work. He loved his daughter more. I felt comfortable with him. I felt happy when he was near. After the book fair, Mark said, "Would you like to have coffee sometime?" I'd like to thank you properly for helping Sophie. My heart jumped. I knew I should say no, but I didn't want to say no. I said, "Sure." That would be nice. We met at a small cafe on Saturday. It was supposed to be just a thank you, but it felt like more. We talked for hours. Mark told me about his divorce. He said it was hard. We grew apart. But we both love Sophie. We're trying to co-parent well. I told him about my life. I said, I always wanted to be a teacher since I was a little girl. I don't have much else. Just my job and my cat. Mark laughed. He said, "A cat? What's his name?" I said, "Whiskers." He's orange and very fat. We both laughed. It felt easy. It felt right. When we said goodbye, Mark hugged me. It was a quick hug. But I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. After that day, Mark and I started texting. Good morning messages. How was your day questions. Funny stories about Sophie. I looked forward to his messages. They made me smile. We met for coffee again. Then dinner. Then a walk in the park. I told myself, this is just friendship. But I knew it wasn't. I had feelings for Mark. Real feelings. And I was scared because Mark was Sophie's father. And I was Sophie's teacher. This was complicated. This was wrong. Or was it? I didn't know. Sophie started acting differently in class. She smiled at me more. She talked to me quietly. One day, she gave me a drawing. It was a picture of 3 people. A man, a woman, and a little girl. Under it she wrote, Daddy, Miss Bella, and me. My heart stopped. Sophie knew. She knew something was happening. I felt guilty. I felt confused. That afternoon, I texted Mark. I said, we need to talk. We met that evening. I showed him the drawing. Mark looked at it. He said, she's happy, Bella.
She likes you, I said, but this is wrong.
I'm her teacher. You're her parent. People will talk. Mark said, "Are we doing something wrong?" "We're just two people who like each other," I said. "It's not that simple." Mark took my hand. He said, "I know it's complicated, but I really like you." I haven't felt this way in years. I looked at him. I said, "I like you too, but I don't know what to do." The next week, everything changed. I was at the grocery store. I was buying vegetables. I heard a voice behind me. "Miss Bella?" I turned around. It was Mrs. Carter. She taught 5th grade at my school. She smiled at me, but her smile was strange. She said, "I saw you last week at the cafe downtown with a man." My face got hot. I said, "Oh, yes." That was Mark, Sophie Lawson's father. Mrs. Carter's smile got bigger. She said, "I see. Just be careful, dear. You know how people talk." She walked away. I stood there. My hands were shaking. I knew what this meant. People were watching. People were talking. I felt trapped. That night I called Mark. I said, "We need to stop." Mark said, "What?" "Why?" I said. "People saw us. People are talking. This could hurt my career. This could hurt Sophie." Mark was quiet. Then he said, "So, what do we do?" I said, "I don't know. But we can't keep doing this." "Not like this," Mark said. "Maybe we should be open about it. Maybe we should tell the principal. If we're not doing anything wrong, why hide?" I said, "Because it looks wrong, Mark. That's what matters." We talked for an hour. We didn't find an answer. I hung up feeling empty. I cried that night. I really did. On Monday morning, I made a decision. I went to Mrs. Peterson's office. Mrs. Peterson is the school principal. She is 50 years old. She is kind but strict. I knocked on her door. She said, "Come in, Bella." I sat down. My hands were sweating. I said, "Mrs. Peterson, I need to talk to you about something." She looked at me. She said, "Go ahead." I took a deep breath. I said, "I've developed feelings for one of my students' parents. His name is Mark Lawson, Sophie's father. We've been spending time together. I wanted to tell you before rumors start." Mrs. Peterson didn't look surprised. She said, "I appreciate your honesty, Bella." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You haven't done anything wrong. But you need to be careful. Parents and teachers dating creates complications, especially while the child is still in your class. Other parents might think you're giving Sophie special treatment. It puts you in a difficult position." I nodded. I said, "I know. That's why I came to you." Mrs. Peterson said, "Here's what I suggest. Keep things professional until the end of the school year. After that, what you do in your personal life is your business." I felt relieved, but I also felt sad. I said, "Thank you, Mrs. Peterson." She smiled. She said, "You're a good teacher, Bella. Don't lose sight of that." That evening, I met Mark. I told him everything. I said, "We need to stop. Until June. Until Sophie is in 3rd grade." Mark looked hurt, but he nodded. He said, "I understand. I don't like it. But I understand." I said, "This is the right thing to do." Mark said, "I know." We sat in silence. Then Mark said, "I'll wait, Bella, if you want me to." I felt tears in my eyes. I said, "I want you to." We hugged. It was a long hug. I didn't want to let go, but I did. I had to. The next few months were hard. I saw Mark at school sometimes. We were polite. We smiled. But we kept our distance. Sophie continued to improve. She talked more. She made friends. She was happy. That made me happy. I focused on teaching. I reminded myself why I became a teacher. Not for romance, for the kids, for their future. On the last day of school, parents came to pick up their children. I said goodbye to all my students. Sophie hugged me. She said, "Thank you, Miss Bella." "I'll miss you," I said. "I'll miss you too, sweetheart." After all the children left, I cleaned my classroom. I was putting books away. I heard a knock and I turned around. It was Mark. He was holding flowers. He said, "School's over." I smiled. I said, "Yes." "It is." He walked toward me. He said, "Can we try now? For real?" I looked at him. I looked at the flowers. I said, "Yes." "We can try." Mark smiled. He gave me the flowers. We hugged. This time, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. That summer, Mark and I started dating. Properly. Openly. We went to movies. We had dinners. We took Sophie to the park. I met his family. He met my friends. Everything felt right. Because we did it the right way. We waited. We respected boundaries. We put Sophie first. Now, when I look back, I'm proud of my decision. I could have kept seeing Mark in secret, but that would have been wrong. Not because loving someone is wrong, but because hiding it would have hurt people. It would have hurt my students. It would have hurt my reputation. It would have hurt Mark and Sophie. I learned something important that year. I learned that real love waits. Real love respects boundaries. Real love doesn't ask you to choose between your integrity and your heart. Real love lets you have both. Mark and I are still together. It's been 2 years now. We're talking about the future. Maybe marriage. Maybe more. Sophie calls me Bella now. Not Miss Bella. She's 9 years old. She's confident. She's happy. She still draws beautiful pictures. Sometimes she draws our family, me, Mark, and her. And every time I see those drawings, I smile. Because I know I made the right choice. I chose responsibility first, and love waited for me. Now I have both. If you liked this story, please subscribe to the channel and watch the next story to learn even more English and hear more real life lessons about love, courage, and doing the right thing. Thank you for reading my story. My name is Bella, and this is my truth.